Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an afterplay show. This is an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, but we tell you all the details of our game, so you'll have to listen to it. Hi, I'm Sammie, I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Isiri Amoli, the Hope of the Abyss. Joining me today is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I play the Malboro Juice and his Moogle companions, the Smogs. All of us use he, him pronouns.
We are also joined today by Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach. I use he, him pronouns, and I play Tao, the multiversal musician who uses they, them pronouns.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Now that we're all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, a television news report is interrupted by surprising physical force before it's able to share a disturbing development. Smog vanishes to the world of the lost and reappears in a new form with his formal attire. After sparing Smog from her wrath, Isiri leaves with Poni and Powder. Tao shares the message from the governance with Terra. The same event from the news report slams the party to the ground. Isiri, Powder, and Poni return to Sequence Charter via a portal from Toroid, while Smog, Umbra, Tao, and Geyser go to the World Travel Lab via Smog's Dark Portal. Tao and Smog reactivate the portal to the World of Spirit, allowing Smog and Geyser to enter. Isiri manipulates the Abyss to rocket herself, Poni, and Powder onto the Paradigm, Terra's ship. A new Tao awaits in the World of Spirit and leads the way to Juice. Isiri discusses the defense plans with Terra before returning to the Marine Biology Lab via teleportation. After a trip to Tao's cabin, Tao, Geyser, Juice, and Smog head to Tao's world. Smog strikes an accord with Tao, borrowing a bit of their power instead of Alexander's. Using this power, he releases his Zettaflare software virus through Juice and a portal to Chrysalis. Isiri, Poni, and Sierra discuss plans to save the planet's life and continue the adventure to gather the world cores. They witness the deployment of Zettaflare, and a series of abyssal magic keeps the governance fleet from fleeing after its decimation.
Now that you've heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into the session. But before that, we're interrupted by this special news alert.
Emergency broadcast, breaking news. Weather is expected to clear in the next few hours.
Slam!
Oh god. I very much enjoyed that way to introduce the chaos that unfurls, because it really sets the tone of, we're now in a crisis movie.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever got explicit confirmation of what was happening. We just know that something made all of the news anchors fall to the ground after a bit of panic, and then something hit the museum we were in as well and made us all fall to the ground.
Yeah, we'll touch upon some theories when we get to a serious conversation with Terra, but we have no idea what's going on at the start here.
No.
Yeah, very mysterious.
I wonder if we'll see these anchors again as interviewers for our party, because we have now brought up the possibility that we should be speaking to the public of Chrysalis.
God, I hope so. I really hope we continue this, because I just really want to be awkward on camera for like 10 minutes.
We know Geyser was recognized as the clown from the news, so let's get the rest of us on there too. Why not?
Geyser got to be the clown in the news again, because part of this news report was them identifying her as the one who made the balloons happen on the airship.
I like how that was breaking news. How slow of a news day do you have?
I mean, it was right after their weather report. It's not exactly like breaking news.
It was, yeah, like a one-liner.
Yeah. Strange weather. Astronomers. Still investigating.
Well, strange visual changes to the nighttime sky that they're investigating. We might know what that is at this point.
Yeah.
From a little later on in the episode.
Yeah.
It could be a couple of things. During the last session, when Isiri was trying to interrupt Smog shenanigans, there are cosmic rippling effects to the actions that she did. Oops. This probably directly feeds into that, so great.
Interesting.
After this news report, I have to make a move at the top of the session because I chose the connected playbook.
Woo, fellow connected.
Too connected.
Get connected for free.
It's education connection.
Not sponsored.
Edit that out. We don't want to give them any free sponsorship.
I wonder if they still exist.
I've seen memes referencing that commercial somewhat recently. I think they still exist.
That's because everyone's watched Degrassi.
Yeah, true.
Regrettably.
Old man Smog disappears into the world of the lost after bamfing to Crystal again, and babyface Smog appears in the outfit that old man Smog had just commissioned, but with some warmer color changes to summarize the differences.
I'm so frustrated with time travel shenanigans. It's not even funny. I'm good at playing, as Dee says, the 5D chess for the plot that we're running here, but like time travel just always fucks with my head.
I think I'll be able to easily explain what's going on with each Smog as we go along. This particular version of Smog is between the two Smogs that we've seen before, but also seems to be the original Smog that came on this journey that met Tao, remembers Tao.
Right. That same Smog, after having some other adventure in a separate timeline?
Yep.
Question mark?
In a timeline where other people do not know who Tao is, and where there is otherwise no mention of Tao.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's very strange.
How is Smog's mental state?
Smog has much more actual experience time to grapple with these things than anyone else. If anyone is grounded in the way that Smog is handling time travel, it's himself. And maybe Juice, because Juice doesn't have to care except, like, that's Dad. I don't think that he has any of the concerns that other people have about his time travel and has had enough time to, like, pinpoint any of these things.
Yeah, but I still think it has to be very extreme to go from, your current timeline, the starting timeline, to this alternate timeline where some of your friends don't exist anymore, and then to be thrown back after a different sequence of events. Like, I know Smog is used to portaling in and out of places because of his previous engagements, but that's still very extreme to go find yourself in a place where people and things you knew existed just don't anymore, especially on that, like, cosmological of a scale.
And with what seems like very little warning.
There are some rules to not make it so there are two Smogs on screen that I have to think about, and to fit with some of the themes of the Connected. Smog's only going to swap out when there's world travel. Luckily, that also means I can kind of do that whenever I want because of the world of Lost.
Okay. Interesting.
All right. I guess we'll have to see what that really means once we go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
The Connected is weird.
The Connected is not supposed to be weird. We decided that something special would go on with Dee's character Paris in our previous game, and then that little mindworm got to all of us, and we're like, but what if I did the same thing and different?
Yeah, what if the Connected was actually the same character, but just different in different worlds, instead of actually being a whole new character?
Yeah.
True, but it's also weird that it's original, and like I know that ties into that trope in Kingdom Hearts, but like, it's still weird to like pretend to be an entire different character no matter where you are.
We've also talked about the strangeness of something flipping from a TTRPG, which is you have someone who's sitting with you for a week, you have a guest, and you're like, well, we have this thing that we have to do every week, and so you're in this now, have a character sheet. Flipping that to Kingdom Hearts, where it's like, well, we have to find some way to get these Disney characters in, we'll treat them like guests at a tabletop role-playing game where like they're not always there, but they have the same sort of stats and they still fit in, and then flipping that back into tabletop.
Ugh.
And making a dedicated character who's there all the time but gets to swap around.
Layers.
I still find it funny that I've been the Connected for like 4 or 5 sessions now. I've still never used their signature move because I wasn't expecting to stay in Sequence Charter this long. So I figured like, I don't need to change up my moves from what I had in the World of Song because we're just going to go straight to the next world and I'll save it till then. But we ended up doing a lot here. Quite a lot. Still haven't done that move to switch around my skills and become a new character, really.
Zach and I are going to have to sit down with Dan and be like, what's going on with our versions of Tao and Smog that are left over? talk about that together. Like, have this Smog and Tao met, and what have they been doing?
Yeah, I was really hoping that by the end of this session we would choose which portal we were going into at least, so we could be like, hey Dan, give us a hint for what this world's like, so we could come up with ideas for what our Tao and Smog are going to be like in that world.
We would have, but it was 2 hours, and like kudos to Dan for pacing, because I feel like it was a little bit of that starting scene or scene together up front, and then it was like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and we were out.
It was sadly a shorter session than normal.
Yeah, but I think we did a lot with the time we had, and that certainly added to that hectic pacing and cataclysmic nonsense. Smog's nonsense is very upsetting spaghetti to Isiri, who has never encountered spaghetti. She's not happy with Smog. In fact, is probably more angry with Smog now that he has changed.
What made you decide to let that go? Especially, like, use that move specifically?
I used the move from my previous playbook, The Light, which is Mercy. You have reason to destroy somebody and don't immediately switch them to a heart link. And one of the reasons I did that was because, party unity. Like, I did want to attack Smog, but I didn't want to be like, let's drag this out to a long fight. I didn't think that would be very productive. But also, that's not how the Abyss is. It's not malevolent in that sense. Yes, it takes retribution and justice in certain aspects, but now is not the time for this, especially with everything going on. Another part is the actions here, and certainly some interactions with humanity and some other characters along through the worlds that we've traveled has inspired, maybe not pettiness, but maybe showmanship or one-upness, because my interpretation of this heart link is, you're lowly trash, and I'm going to prove that I'm better than you, because I know I'm better than you seeing your actions here, so I'm going to save everything that you thought was broken.
Oh my god, you played right into my playlist songs. How does Isiri feel about being called Abby?
Pissed. Enraged. I had to explain that to Dan because he didn't quite clock the shortening for the Abyss. If you call her that again, she's going to be really upset with you because that is not her name.
Smog also asked you to call him something and you did not. So it's
fair.
Retribution.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but like...
It's so funny.
Tao was still in a vision for this whole exchange and didn't get a whole lot of it, but I find it really interesting that Isiri is blaming Smog for this, because like Alex set this into motion by using the prophecy skill, but Smog was just giving information that he knew.
It's a little bit less that I'm blaming fixing causation. I'm sure that's how Isiri is going to interpret it, just because of how the Abyss operates. More like, if you knew this, why didn't you tell us sooner?
Right. We'll deal with that later in-game, but I mean, I might as well say it here because I don't think there's any huge ramifications to it. Smog had his memory modified. He's been clear about that, so that he wouldn't reveal things before they were necessary. Yes, it's something that has to happen, but he doesn't know when it will, and trying to prepare people for that too early could set things off of the timeline that he's trying to create.
We talked about Smog's memory maybe being messed with when he first showed up and didn't recognize Tao, I think. So I kind of find it funny that, yes, his memory was tampered with, but also the timeline where he's from, Tao isn't there.
Yeah.
So that wasn't anything to do with the memory at all.
Good, great. Glad we cleaned that up.
Yep. Tying up some ends, creating some more fraying.
Good.
Group splits up. Isiri heads out with Poni. Geyser is left to choose mommy or daddy.
God, I love that for us.
Which is funny because ostensibly Smog doesn't really understand what's going on with Isiri.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, that's the other thing too. If we encounter Alexander again, Isiri's trying to take pity on Smog because they're basically immortal or whatever, caught up in the shenanigans of otherworldly beings. But they also aren't holding them completely innocent either. They're in like that gray middle ground where they had a choice, but they're choosing poorly, so I don't know how to handle that. But if she encounters Alexander again, she's gonna let him have it. It's not like she is enraged at the entire scenario presented here. And it takes a lot to piss off this benevolent being.
I'm planning to continue using the Avatar of Alexander, Smog, for returning to any old worlds and Chrysalis.
Interesting.
So we have not seen the last of that Smog.
Oh, good. I can't wait to talk to him. Glad I chose the Mercy route, because I didn't want to, rip you to shreds, which I knew would be hard because of your 3-stage boss fight move, and you have Tank a Shot too, right?
Yeah.
So it would be a pain in the ass to fight you.
Smog is built to not die.
Yeah. One of the things I thought about was striking to subdue and then just taking your ass to the world of the lost anyway. In private, but I was like, no, that's very knee-jerk, that's very rash. It's better to live better than your opponent than to make them physically suffer at your hand, or at least that's how Isiri would act. Make no mistake, she wants to tear the stuffing out of the teddy bear that is. But now isn't the time. There's bigger threats, there's bigger issues. We just gotta swallow our pride and move on.
The series group is outside trying to get in contact with Sequence Charter. Smog is pretty much immediately like, I'm making a dark portal, you in or you're out, to everyone else in the room. The series group heads out via toroid portal, and Umbra eventually decides to go along the Sequence Charter, hoping to speak with Terra about how to defend his city.
Yeah, that don't work out too great, because as we find out very quickly, the paradigm is pulling out of dock and rising into space to fight the menace. A good choice from a defensive tactic. The city's in chaos. Terra has ordered everyone to go back underground and protect themselves. There's nobody on the streets, and if there are people on the streets, they're running like chickens with their heads cut off.
We never really get to touch back with Umbra, but I imagine might have got a port from Toroid after that, or probably not just sitting in the World Lab, but who knows?
Probably not just sitting in the World Lab, maybe coordinating with whoever's left on the ground.
I think it would be super funny if he was just like, fuck it, I have no idea what else is going on. Let's see this other world people have been talking about.
Just fucking leave? Holy shit.
Comes along with us.
Just walk right into the world of spirit.
Never come back.
Mm-hmm.
No. What about everyone you care about?
Umbra just goes to hang out with Sulky Weaver.
Honestly, same. I bet that woman makes a mean cup of tea.
Oh, absolutely.
Toroid's only able to get a series group into this common area outside of the towers. And I love Isiri asking Poni where she thinks the captain might be, and Poni being like, on beach training?
I was trying to get Carolyn to give me a little bit more back and forth here, and I'm so glad she's like, I don't know. Where do people go?
That is where Poni and Terra have spent the most time together, so that would make sense.
Siri's like, unlikely in this circumstance. Let's go to the lab.
Meanwhile, Tau and Geyser and Smog and Umbra are in the World Travel Lab. The portals are currently down. Mm-hmm. So Smog's like, let me just finagle this with time magic, and if anyone else has any way to stabilize this, do it. Tau heads over to the computers and works their magic.
Kind of works their magic. This version of Tau isn't quite as computerized as OG Tau. Hunting and pecking at the keyboard, trying to remember, what do I need to do to get this to do this? I haven't done this without being inside the computer, but now I'm a physical body.
God, that's so jarring. I'll head through the portal once you open it, and
yeah. World of Spirit, for those of y'all that might not remember, is where all of the people have a animal form that they can transform into. When Smog gets into the World of Spirit and starts calling for Tau, a dragon starts flying in from the village. He then lands and is humanoid Tau.
In a wonderful lumberjack outfit.
Yes, flannel and heavy denim.
I love that.
Full-on country Tau. This was one of the Taus that I had actually had some more time to think about, as this is a world that we went back to that we'd been already. But it was fun that I actually got to show them off.
I don't know if I made this explicit in the summary. Smog is here to find Juice. We've done that in-game before, had Smog visit Juice. Smog realizes this version of Tau was here. Did they help put Juice in place?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about, because it seemed kind of out of left field for everything going on. I was like, why on earth would Tao know that?
So I'm setting up something for later in the session.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in the timeline, Smog is supposed to bring Juice along to help fight, and explicitly does not, and does not bring Rig. Could not cast Zettaflare the other way he's supposed to if he wanted to. He knows that a future version of himself will have put Juice here. A Juice that actually did go along with the Zettaflare incident and lose an eye stalk because he's gone to another world where another older Smog has come back.
While this Tao is technically a resident of this world, was placed into this world after all that happened, wasn't really involved with putting Juice in there and safeguarding him.
Also useful that since this playbook change, Smog and Juice are now amalgamated again. Tao can use that link to find Juice, since maybe Smog doesn't know exactly where in the swamp Juice is supposed to be.
He could just pick a point, say, I'll put Juice there later, go back, and that's where Juice would be, right?
If these timelines were not multiple timelines and everything was self-contained, that would be damn near guaranteed, but we gotta defy fate sometimes.
Yeah, you can't just, Bill and Ted, I'll remember to put the car keys under this rock.
Oh my god.
This concept of time travel is a little bit world travel. Like, I want to play with the idea that we have a lot of people that are from some version of Earth. Those are technically separate timelines in a way.
So y'all descend into the depths of the swamp in a magic air bubble.
Smog makes a point of like, Tao, I needed you here. I want you to remember this world where we were at odds. Ideologically, I was coming from, these people need to embrace their deity. You are coming from a point where this deity needs to be better for their people.
This is where Smog also mentions that he didn't bring his own version of Juice along with him. He intentionally left that Juice behind so he wouldn't have to go through the horrors.
Yep. This is the first time where he's like, I'm defying fate.
But going through the horrors builds such character.
It does, but Juice is just a little boy.
Not anymore. They're bigger now.
Juice is a man now. Oh no, we haven't given Juice a human soda yet.
Oh.
I don't know if I want to know.
Just exactly a Pokemon backpacker, but with dyed green hair.
Thank you. Not quite entirely human, but my brain went to like Medusa cosplay.
Oh my god.
I was thinking something along those lines.
I just appreciate in this scene where, like, as you're freeing Juice from the vat, all of the, like, tender and kind things that Smog does to Juice, like rubbing the tentacles and petting the ice dogs.
All of them are focused on Tao except one, because this Juice hasn't met Tao yet. So just a curious new entity in the room.
But they have met Geyser. Geyser was also there with us.
Yes.
After this reunion, Smog asks Tao to pop open a portal to Tao's world, and Tao, partially because it would actually be easier to open the portal, and partially because they don't want to get stuck down here in this underwater goop lab, is like, let's go back to my place and I can get my fiddle.
This is probably a good time to hop back to Isiri getting into the lab, not finding anyone she wanted to see.
Literally nobody. I'm hilarious because goodness me is the best thing a god can exclaim. This is frustrating for me. I knew everyone was going to be scrambled. I knew everything was going to be panicked. Terra's on that ship more than likely. Sierra isn't here. Who the hell knows where they are? This hasn't really been addressed in-game. Outside of the party and Terra and Sierra and perhaps Aura, Isiri's going to be very guarded with who she tells her true identity to, because it's just not pertinent to other people's everyday lives. It's not something people need to worry about. She's trying to protect Powder from that, I think, because Powder's being dragged along with all this because, of course, she is. But the only way that Isiri sees to get help, be able to be helpful in the same turn, is to get the fuck on the paradigm, because nobody's here, probably nobody's in the world lab, and she doesn't want to spend time running around looking for people who aren't around. She can logically guess that somebody helpful is going to be on that ship. I took the move, if there's no door, I'll make one, from the Prodigy book. She turns to and asks both Poni and Powder, promise me you're not going to be afraid of me after what I do, because once you enter the incorporealness of the void, things get a little fucky and terrifying. And we've already seen what Sierra reacted to a series' true form, so let's not dig ourselves a deeper hole.
I would be fine stepping into the... I don't know if it's supposed to actually, like, move through things, so I'm going to say, like, thin and stretchy goo.
It's much less like an actual goo. I know, like, we've been gooing Isiri as, like, a joke. It's good and funny and a little bit scientifically accurate. But in this, in, like, the purest form, it's more like somewhere between smoke and a shadow.
Okay.
Cold, misty.
That makes sense.
I don't think it's, like, an actual goo. Both Powder and Poni are like, yeah, that's fine. What are you gonna do? Not the right question. To be honest. Poni's like, yeah, I know it's you in there. Powder's like, you've done nothing scary at this point. And I'm like, that's also not the right interpretation of this. Isiri manipulates the abyss, rather pulls herself along through the non-existent distances between the void, and basically sucks Powder and Poni into the mist with her, and they catapult onto the ship as like some sort of smoke demon from Lost.
What are the numbers?
The numbers! I don't know. I don't know how to read. Poni seemed very chill with that. I would like to pick Carolyn's brain. Later on, she's very impressed by it. But that's still a wild thing to go through.
Poni is living up to the knucklehead inspirations from the book of, yeah, that's pretty strong and powerful and maybe weird looking, but you're my friend, so it's not going to hurt me. It's cool.
She's also from the world that seems to have some of the most overt magic, if not always the most powerful. She doesn't have as much experience with it directly, but she knows about it. She's like, oh, these things I've been reading about, I finally get to see. Like, she has a word for what Isiri does. She calls it transmogrification. Well, maybe I've never seen anybody do this, and I didn't even hear about, like, unicorns being able to do this, but I know it's a possibility, and that you can do this is really interesting and just cool and powerful.
Yes, and I'm going to feed into this starting the next session, where I do want to start to teach Poni some more stuff, and I guess we're circling back to making Poni into a nightmare again.
Yes! Yes!
I would like to start teaching Poni some magical things that perhaps would not be accessible to her otherwise. I do love the interplay between Isiri and Poni, and I think it's because they're both on the base level animals. Yes, Isiri is a mermaid, but the way I've designed their species is just like a regular-ass animal that's slightly more intelligent. That's a fun interplay between these two people who don't see the world through the same lens as everyone else.
I also appreciated this session is getting back into those pairs that we had at the start of the game and maybe explaining why those happen. And I'm glad you hit those beats with Carolyn and Poni.
I do want to like help Poni achieve whatever goal she wants. I just need to know what those are. Because besides Powder, Poni's the only one that's been pretty chill with Isiri this entire time. They morph onto the ship and immediately are met by guns pointed their way. Which, to be fair, if I was already in the middle of an unknown crisis and a giant smoke monster manifests in the bridge of my ship, I would probably be very terrified of what was to come. So the reaction is fine, but Isiri's just like, all right, protect everyone, group hug.
Why won't the smoke monster give me a pony for my birthday?
And then puts Poni down. Kara's like, hold your fire. It's Poni and Isiri and Powder, ? I can't wait till this calms down so I can talk to Tara. And I want her to be like, why the fuck did you bring her here? Powder isn't part of the military. They're not quite a civilian either.
I thought Powder was in the military, just in, like, the scouts and not frontline combat situations.
We might understand that a little bit better as we go along. I've made a note that I have some thoughts about something to do with Powder and Smog soon.
Shakes fist. If you touch my wife, I'm going to beat you up.
I think it will be good for everyone. I don't think it'll be...
Okay, because if you hurt any cell on her body, then I will no longer enact mercy upon Smog.
No giving Powder haircuts.
Powder doesn't have any hair to cut, so that's fine. Terra has suited back up into their full battle armor. Everyone on the ship is in their Marauder's armor, which is slightly different than the standard military armor. And it's tense on the ship as we're looking out the window, and they're flying straight towards the moon, which is confusing. Terra just drops the bomb. Oh yeah, the moon's falling. Great.
That weird gravitational event where everybody slammed to the ground related.
Right, yeah, I think I might have missed that line when we were actually playing, but yeah, I guess that's what knocked everyone over, is the moon falling.
Terra speculates that this could have something to do with the governance discovering their own form of world travel. Isiri asks what she can do to help, and Terra's like, well, if they're working on this too, we need to beat them to it. If they're going to the same worlds, you need to get the world cores before them. If they're not, you need to get them faster.
Which makes a lot of sense. And the unimaginable risk of this, we don't even know if they're people, the governance. They sent out a gravitational wave that's making the moon fall. What else can they possibly do? Really ups the throttle on the weight of our mission here. We do need to collect these world cores quickly, but Isiri, being the practical person, is like, hey, you just told me your moon is literally falling. Do you not want me to do something about that too? The thing that makes Isiri pause is Terra's request to make sure we do everything together as best we can, or like make the decision unanimous as possible. Right now, she knows that's not possible. So she's just like, I'll do my best.
I have a plan for the Avatar of Alexander Smog to speak with Terra that will be interesting in that light. And I don't think we're going to get to it next session, because I hope we're going to pick somewhere to move on to. Yeah. I think we might get to it between the next world and the last world.
It is high time we moved to one of these final two worlds.
I'm so sad we didn't get to follow up on this, but Isiri does offer to get the beast into the mix to help protect the moon.
I've also been wanting to go back to the world of spirit to talk to the beast anyway. There's something I wanted to ask him about. Also, I thought it would be hella funny if Isiri and Poni and Powder ran into Smog and Tao and Kaiser while they're picking up things. But unfortunately, it did not shake out this way. The way I see it, current Isiri and the Sleep Beast are going to have an interesting relationship, and I really want to explore that, but it didn't shake out here.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. The abyss and the moon would certainly be an interesting relationship.
The sea pulls on the moon, and we've already had that happen, so I would like to see how they go back and forth regarding certain things, and I really want to explore the weight of that relationship.
Isiri also mentions the Void a little bit in here, which is so funny to me, because it's like, it's a Final Fantasy thing. The Void is supposed to be this like empty space that connects all the Final Fantasy worlds. You could possibly interpret it just as outer space, but it's a power that can be manipulated. So I'm like, we have a connection.
Wow, me not knowing anything about Final Fantasy other than Blitzball.
Like specifically lore from one of the crossover games, because they don't use that very often.
It's used to explain how most crossover things happen.
Well, I'm glad that plays in, because that just is more threads to pull on, but she is just specifically referring to the physical space she takes up. I would rather not throw everybody on this planet into the void, because I know how I am, so don't make me do that. She tells Terra, like, I'll do whatever you want, but I'm not going to spend the cost of all the life on this planet. This will come up more and more, but the Abyss has an interesting relationship with Earth, and if these are truly the last remnants of life on Earth, then they're not ready to give up yet. They can't.
I wonder how that's going to play out with the Isiri visiting Poni's Earth.
It's been a hot minute since I've seen a Shrek movie, but do they refer to their world as Earth?
I had to look this up because it is like, bold choice, Carolyn.
Yeah.
As far as I understand from the Shrek Wiki, there has not been a direct reference to the planet they are on as Earth. However, the characters have a lot of real world, especially pop culture knowledge, and they refer to specific places in the world. Like someone asks Shrek if he's from Europe when he's in human form, I think. You can extrapolate from that, and I think that's a good choice for Carolyn to make when Isiri is so hard on herself about the remnants of Earth.
I agree. It was very like, wait, what? When she said that? Because being a player, what is my knowledge of Shrek lore? Which is such a weird sentence. But also like, oh, in game, that has weight because all these other people, Tao has said they're from Unearth, and Geyser has said they're from Kangwon, which used to be Earth. Who's true? How much stock does Isiri put into all these places?
Which one could Isiri be from? Is she really from this timeline? Like, who knows?
I know.
Is it a predecessor to all of them?
Who knows? I know, but I'm not going to say.
Isiri is actually the space between that Athenos is working in.
That has some uncomfortable connotations. Maybe we should use grammar to rephrase that.
I said it on purpose.
Very well. Whatever you need, I'll do it, Terra, but I also need Sierra's help because I can't let all these sea creatures and everything here die too. Terra's like, yeah, go for it. Whatever you need. Sierra's like, great, well, right now I need a portal back to the planet because I don't want to morph back using magic because I'm starving. One of the, in-game limits I've given myself is that Isiri is trapped by her biology. She is a living thing despite her nature. A lot of this crazy nonsense the Abyss does is fueled off of her metabolism, so burning fuel just to do this.
I like that contrast with Smog again because I've based Smog on the magic systems that are more like you are expending your time or a resource to do this rather than your own interior pool of MP. It's another good contrast between the magic and the two of them.
God. We should write a paper about this. They warp back down via Terra's portal. They're back in the research lab, and Sierra has abandoned life, I guess is the best. Or, I guess hope, which is so funny because Terra's sending him hope now. Great. Just staring out the window, a bunch of psycho-glass wine on a table. It's just drinking at the end of the world. Which, honestly, mood. I would be in the same boat.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hell yeah.
At this point, we hop back to Tao's world.
Technically, we hop back to the world of spirit for just a second while Tao gets their fiddle and plays a tune to get in the zone to open up the portal to Tao's world. Soon enough, everyone's in Tao's world. Enter a bar-looking area with a stage set up. Someone's singing at the stage with their eyes closed, lost in the music, as is how you get to this world. And original Tao sitting at the bar waiting for you.
I love that. I love that as a concept of this place being the in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to ask, is it just for music and art, or is it like any other thing that you can get really fixated on?
When I was originally talking to Dan about what I wanted this world to be, I was thinking it would be cool if there was some alternate way to get in, like the world of the lost when we go to sleep. Really being in the zone creatively, I think, is what ends up with people getting into Tao's world. It's not just with musical performance, can be with other types of performance, can be with just other types of creating art, but it's really that creativity.
And boy, howdy, do we have some creativity to unleash.
Indeed.
Smog plops up on the bar next to Tao. Juice wiggles over. Smog just takes a moment to be like, once again, we were just in the world of spirit. I wanted you to remember that. Then more explicitly goes on about how he's not going to be casting Zettaflare the same way. He wants to do something different here. And then I have this feel about how there can be a different understanding between gods and mortals. I have a long list of the ways in which he's seen that is between the other version of himself and Alexander, Powder, and he says Abby again, Geyser and Jilly, and Hercules, and Athenos, and I forgot to add in here Alrune and Cyclia.
Right.
Such an intricate theme we've woven here, and almost unintentionally, but I do like how the relationship between these either higher powers or primal forces and the people who have to deal with them have sort of shaken out and become a constant motif in this.
That's kind of something that we started establishing day one with Smog thinking of everyone as gods and being overly respectful, and a Thanos actually being a god. But it's really cool how it's kind of shaken out at this point.
I don't know what the timeline is if a Thanos is going to come back, but if Dex does come back with a Thanos, I cannot wait to see, A, what happened to them in the meantime, but also, B, what their reactions to everything that's happened since they've been gone would be.
So I did reach out to Dex to see if he could be in on the session we're currently talking about, because it's like, this is big. It would be great to have a Thanos back, and I just miss playing with Dex. And he finally got back to me today, actually, and said that he would be available the next time we're planning on playing.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have missed Dex, because Dex is such a fun partner to play with in the scenes. Also, Thanos just has, like, such raw energy.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I love it here when Smog just, like, turns to Tao in a quiet moment, like a lull in the song from the performer, and is like, "Are you a god, Tao?" Big Bioshock Infinite energy right here.
Smog offers a hand to Tao, like he's looking for a pact of some sort. And Tao doubts if they're as powerful as Alexander to offer something like that. And that's why Smog asks, "Are you a god?"
Yeah, and Tao doesn't think they're a god, really. But Smog, looking around at the literal world that Tao is created.
I have to read this verbatim. "You're something. I believe that. I was the first one to believe that."
Yeah, that's great. Tao shakes Smog's hand, and we get Smog, Avatar of Tao.
It doesn't have the same ring due to the less syllables, but
yeah.
Not to shirk Tao or anything. I'm sure the potency of this relationship will be like pushed front and center here.
We need something for alliteration with a T there to really sell it. We'll figure it out at some point.
The tabernacle of Tao.
Smog gets as a brand instead of the usual sort of Final Fantasy-ish markings, a microphone, painted tattoo in there for his palm changes from this like dark, shadowy purple to like a radiating sun. So we've got this warm color scheme throughout him now. He's got yellow palm instead of the purple or teal crystals we were talking about before, red crystal necklace and ear stud, and instead of purple coattail, orange longer coattail, and more gold elements instead of silver for the like any pinstripe and gauntlets and boots that he's wearing. Because Tao's a fire dragon.
Yeah.
A red fire dragon.
Bit of that Tao showing through, and gonna channel that power.
In addition to the source of Zettaflare, instead of being a magician casting like Donald Duck has done so famously in the past, Smog is going to use the power of a dragon god, like Bahamut. The Zettaflare that he is going to cast is also different. I took inspiration from Flare scaling up in power with the prefixes that it does to have a software version of Zettaflare.
So you basically have put forth a cosmic software update on the universe.
It's a piece of Magitech, so yeah, there's some magic to it, but the intent is mostly to fry the governance's technological systems. But he does say it's based on Tao, because Tao is a piece of magic software at the end of the day.
True.
Is this the Zettaflare you've prophesized, or is this just a form of it?
This form of Zettaflare achieves the prophecy, but probably has not yet been cast in another timeline. Okay. Because this is the one Smog that met Tao coming to Tao. Smog lifts up juice to like point the tentacles to make some lasers, shoot out the light, get it through basically a hard drive that he's holding up to stream out the data. His wings turn into smaller versions of Tao's dragon wings, and he gets like a scaly red face.
So this is the result of your third tier advancement for this book, which is you chose to rewrite your link move. Would you mind explaining what you wrote?
Right. I should explain that I got this immediately because of the connected move that makes you spend all of your links, and you can swap things around and then also get experience 1-to-1 for links spent instead of 2-to-1 as usual. So I immediately jumped to my third advancement and changed my link move. I didn't want to take away from what Zach was doing already. There can be some synergy with multiple people giving out the world links, but I just wasn't as interested in that. And I pitched Dan a bunch of ideas that were like really simple and activated on link moves. And he pointed out and gave me some examples that are like, link moves don't always actually activate when you make a link. They just have to involve links somehow. So I pitched back to him some of the options that he gave me mechanically, but also making it an enhancement on the ultimate form. We didn't have time for me to share this, but the trigger for this is that Smog has to take an ultimate form by entreating with local magic. Because we're in Tao's world, he had to entreat with Tao in order to add these effects where he has to spend locked links to tack them on.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to go for the Connected.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted something that still had the heart of the Connected represented. It is called Junction Shift, represent junctioning from Final Fantasy VIII, which is the human party members linking up with summons to improve their stats and use summons. And then the paradigm shift from Final Fantasy XIII, which is a change in the middle of battle. So to have being able to use multiple sources of magic to enhance yourself available with Smog. So maybe we'll see some more interesting variations on Final Fantasy summons with Smog as we go along.
We'll be looking forward to that.
So it gives you 3 extra options for Ultimate Form. Another effect bypasses defenses and is powerful. Another effect hits more than one entity. And another effect exposes something hidden. I liked that Dan was initially giving me some ideas, was pitching things based on what Use Magic does. Then I just tied that back into Ultimate Form. That all gets shot through the portal back to Chrysalis. Smog is holding Tao's hand while the other hand is holding up the drive.
The Connected are connected.
We got connected for free.
At the cost of emotional labor.
The scene a little bit earlier is where we got what I was thinking might be a different title for the episode. Smog says, in referencing not joining with Alexander, I'm more someone who dances with the one they came in with. I wanted to have that pairing with Tao even represented in that moment, and Smog was singing during this.
The symbolism. The completion of the cycle.
They'll have 2 more worlds to go.
We're getting there. So after Smog, Juice, and Tao sent off the math laser into Chrysalis, we hop back to Isiri, Poni, Powder, and Sierra. Sierra, finally realizing somebody else is in the room, turns to Isiri, and Isiri's just like, oh my, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. And Sierra, to his credit, is like, stop worrying about it, it doesn't matter. But also really sad because he's like, I'm gonna die now, great. Sierra is my type of character, and I know we've talked about my preoccupation with grumpy old men who have a death wish. It touches a chord somewhere in me that, like, somebody who's lived so long and seen so many things, but is still here and is still putting up with it, is still just doing their best. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, I want you to succeed, but I know your time is past, so there's tragedy there.
Mm-hmm.
In this scene, I'm trying to set up something for later, which I don't want to get into too much now. But a series like, Sierra, you are probably the one here that is most in tune with the ocean and with the sea and everything going on. I need your help more than anybody, more than Terra's, because A, I want to save all the life forms on this planet. But also B, there's something else that Isiri wants to do with Sierra's help as well. And these two things end up going hand in hand. So she's like, I want to teach you everything that could possibly be said about the ocean.
And he's worrying about his time. I don't know if I have time for all that, Isiri.
The perfect argument, considering the moon falling down Majora's Mask style.
Yeah.
Poni's a little out of the start of the scene because part of the ultimate form is Smog pushing his experience to Poni through a little fighting game that shows off some of her future fighting moves.
Hilarious.
Poni's got Mugen downloaded on that tablet.
Hell yeah.
We know Poni has propensity to get distracted by screens.
Yeah.
I think that works out perfectly. I want to know how this game gives her experience and knowledge. I've played a lot of video games. I'm not going to jump off a building Assassin's Creed style.
But if you did, you would know to swan dive and flip into a bale of hay.
Isiri and Sierra going back and forth. Pony's like, oh, you should build a life raft.
Sierra's like, that's kind of what we were trying to do with world travel.
It's so much.
It's such a hard problem to ask a little horse to solve.
And I like Pony's response to Isiri being like, I need your help with all this. And she's like, well, normally I don't want to be a beast of burden, but considering the circumstances, sure.
This is where we do have Pony mentioning explicitly Earth.
Yes. Right. That throws everyone through a loop. Or at least Isiri. It's just like, it's like that scene from SpongeBob where it's like, how many Squidwards are there? How many Earths are there, really?
At least it's not a problem you have to worry about with Smog.
Good. But that does spur the notion that we saw Terra return from outer space. She must have been somewhere, so Isiri asked, can I yeet all these fish to a different planet? And Sierra's like, no. Absolutely not.
You don't want to see those other places, Isiri. They're bad.
Yeah, he's like, you would hate it there. And I'm like, great. We continue going back and forth, but Sierra looks out the window and all of a sudden, all of the governance vessels start appearing in the sky.
The Zettaflare has been released. The Zettaflare is propagating.
It's propagating. It's manifesting.
As all these ships show up, they start crashing into each other as the virus is messing with them.
I like to imagine on their screen little Tao and Smog pop up as pixel art doing a dance or something and just each other.
All of the controls start going wild, and then like these pixel like just all over the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like a jump scare with a giant pixel art juice.
Honestly, that's what I'm looking most forward to in the Return of Juice is the weird juice sound effects. While most of the ships are being distracted and taken under the effects of Zettaflare, some of them are still moving and trying to pull back, and the series is like, absolutely not. How dare you use myself to hide your essence here? I used a move I haven't used yet, and I've been saving for a fun moment, and it's just from the Light book. True power is the light, I think. And when a dark force is coming up against you, you can make them stumble at an inopportune moment. This gives Terra's ship the opportunity to fire a death laser at some of the bigger, more battle-ready ships and buy them some time, hopefully.
We do see the Paradigm heading off, chasing after some small escape ships, so I think Dan was doing me a solid and setting up some stuff I want to touch on with other versions of Smog.
Love that. God, I'm so ready for our inevitable space battle that's going to be the climax of this campaign.
That would be interesting.
We have a ship in dock.
Yeah, I know what's happening with these other two versions of Smog. I don't know what I think the ending of this campaign is going to be.
I don't either, because we still have to deal with the world of the lost, which could throw a monkey wrench into everything else.
Right. Still don't know what's going to happen when the Master gets their brain back.
We better not leave Teddy behind.
This was a chaotic as fuck session, and Isiri is emotionally wrecked and exhausted.
That is fair after all we've gone through this session, yeah.
Smog's riding high is like, not only did I do the thing I was supposed to do, but I did it in a way where things end up possibly better, especially for me and Juice.
How is Tao feeling?
Tao is still a bit uncertain, I think, is the best way to put it. They just don't have enough info about what anyone is really doing at this point. It's a lot to try to make any sure decisions about.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Geyser's in the sort of same boat, just sort of overwhelmed with everything going on, that they can't really follow their usual decision-making tree.
Yeah.
I think Pony is just in amusement or wonder of the spectacle of everything going on right now.
Maybe when it calms down, she'll have an existential crisis too.
Oh, Lord. Not right. Is there anything else we wanted to chat about?
Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that this new version of Smog, even before singing to do the Zettaflare, was very quickly like chanting and doing like small, tight dance movements to cast magic, referencing when Smog had to use magic without Rig before.
Right. I love that, but for whatever reason in my head, it popped into, instead of like some sort of ritual dance, Smog breakdancing. I don't know why.
Hell yeah. That would be hilarious. The things we could do breakdancing with wings.
Yes, that's an excellent point. All right, would y'all have done something differently?
The one thing that I would have done differently was interrupted more at the start to get Tao's vision resolved that we hung off of last time, because there was that whole scene where I was just still in limbo that would have been cool to be a part of.
I'm sorry, like having a move that pops off at the start and disrupts everything was not good for that. On that note, I wish because I was just really excited. So there were times when I didn't want to say anything, but I think I distracted everybody because I was like very into it. Just like held back a little bit, and especially made space for Geyser to do some more stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple things I would have liked to do differently. I am curious to see what would have happened if I had tried to fight Smog. Probably nothing good. But that's just me being like, what if? I wanted to get more into the conversation with Sierra, and I guess there's still time to do that next session. But what I want to do is very hard to articulate exactly with like all of the chaos and all the nonsense going on around us. How do you ask this favor at the time of potentially the end of the world? I'll toss back and forth with Dan to see how we can make this work. This was a hard session for me because A, so much was going on, and then B, we were off of like a long trip too, so it was just the mental drain was setting in at the end there. I felt like I didn't get the interactions I wanted with everybody.
We'll have more time next time, and maybe Athenos will be around.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Maybe Athenos could finally act as the marriage counselor Smog and Isiri need. Let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about the game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Zach?
After some time quietly thesaurusing in the background, I've decided that this Smog is the thaumaturge of Tau. And you can find me on Blue Sky at Zach Defense.
What about you, Alex?
Why take one of two paths when you could just take both of them? You can find me on Blue Sky at Shining Crowbat. This week, I'm recommending Susto. Wikipedia tells me that the actual word is about a cultural illness, primarily among Latin American cultures, described as a chronic somatic suffering stemming from emotional trauma from witnessing traumatic experience lived by others. The rock band of the same name deals with some of those issues in their songs, also has some songs that are more fun times. I've been really interested in them recently. They just dropped a new album, and I will be linking you to my favorite song of theirs, Homeboy.
And for myself, I just think it's interesting that for somebody who lives underwater, Isiri has definitely cried the most in this campaign. You can find me at the edge of madness where passion is bliss. This has been Resolve, an afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at ResolveAfterplay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator, Riley Hopkins, at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the episode description.
Thank you again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us what's happening in your game.